morning, everyone. It is time for Backyard Basics.
Good morning.
We just got done talking about the fact that people are starting to get itchy to get back in the yard, get your yards looking good. Remember, spending time in your yard is the #1 activity of homeowners here in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
especially as those temperatures get a little nicer outside.
No question
Absolutely.
about it. And we have Phil Glaser joining us in studio. He's the owner of Capital Landscaping. And he's going to give you some tips of what you can do to try to make it look a little nicer around your place and what they can do to make it look even better, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so what are we talking about first?
Well, let's go ahead, since you mentioned you have a shady patch in your yard.
Yeah, I was mentioning off camera that most of my yard is full sun, which is nice. But there's one area next to the house. There's some trees over to the west. It's like a runway basically between the house and the fence. I cannot get anything to grow.
And he always tries.
I try every year, and got to the point where I took some of this mulch and put it outside the door of my garage because nothing would grow there. It would just be mud.
All right, so if you have a heavy shade area or you have a lot of pets, what we recommend is forego the first treatment of the year, which has your crabgrass preventer in it, because that actually will not let new seeds germinate.
Really?
And then in the shady areas, what we do is use a starter fertilizer, and in the spring we also seed them. And then again in August, we recommend the exact same thing again. So you're going to end up seeding that area twice a year, and it should go ahead within a year, and you should have a pretty nice lawn.
Really?
In the shady areas.
Now, do you have to add any material to the dirt or anything that's around there if you haven't had anything growing, or just fertilizing it? Is that
all
okay?
we recommend is the starter fertilizer, aerate that area and seed it heavily, and realize that as the years go on, you don't need to use the crabgrass preventer in the shady areas.
Okay.
Because that'll keep the seeds from germinating, and just realize that trees compete for the same nutrients as grass, so you might as well go ahead and realize it's going to take a little more maintenance than those that have a lot of sunlight on them.
So it sounds like how you start is going to affect everything.
It really does make a huge difference if you go with a plan and you use a company, and we're a little smaller than a lot of the companies in town, so our people that do the lawn treatments actually take a look before they do it and then make the choice of, well, do I really need to use the crabgrass preventer where there's a lot of shade, or should I go ahead and use a starter fertilizer? And then they'll let the client know, I'm going to go ahead and throw some seed down too.
Let's talk about lawns in general. This time of year, things are finally starting to thaw out. We're getting a decent amount of rain right now in the area here. What should people be keeping an eye on?
I think the biggest thing is everybody needs to relax a little bit. The thaw is basically out of the ground. It's a little late this year. The ground is saturated. We don't need any more moisture. I haven't seen a yard that's looking good this spring, but they will bounce back. The turf is pretty healthy. Most yards, I would go ahead. The ground temps are getting close. We begin fertilizing next week.
That soon, huh?
And so some yards will get the crabgrass preventer, some will not, as we've talked about. Where you had a lot of patchiness and kill, and you'll see that a lot near the curb lines, and that's from the salt.
Oh,
everybody used a lot of salt. When I was driving in, I noticed your curb lines, it's about a foot off. That you can see it's really patchy. There's a product you can put in that'll actually drive the salt into the ground. If you go to your local hardware store, you can buy gypsum. You can buy lime if you have pets, and that'll drive the acid further into the soil, and then you can get your
That's
yard.
the reason you put that on there? I didn't know that.
The gypsum loosens it up, and the lime will get the pH back to where you need it.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about that, because it is true. If you drive around right now, nobody's yard is looking glorious just yet. It's still kind of early out there, but we are dealing with snow and mud and salt going away. But we're starting to think about getting our mowers out here eventually. A lot of us have pets that we're walking, things like that. So how does that all really affect our lawn if we're wanting it to look very pristine?
I'll be honest, if you have large dogs and you want a lush backyard, you're probably fighting a losing battle. The acidity from the dogs is heavy, so we recommend a lot of lime treatments. We recommend the same thing, seeding a lot, to try to get it to boost up, but with the dogs running on it and then also doing their daily events, it just takes a wear and tear. On the other side, if the city plows, or if you get your driveway plowed and you have some grass that was plowed back from the plows,
right?
Turf is pretty resilient. If you flip it back over, 8 times out of 10, it'll actually reattach and start growing.
It will.
And then you
do
can
you need to do anything special to it? Do you put any fertilizer?
Just smooth it out and throw some grass seed around the rest of the areas. And I would say, because we're running late this year, by June, you probably will realize you can't really tell the plows hit that area.
Seriously.
Well,
so
it'll bounce
it is
back
savable.
that fast.
It is savable.
Yes.
Well, let's get into what you brought in with you this morning. Mulch, right?
We brought 2 different types of mulch.
Okay.
Long ago when we started, it was cedar was the big one. And then as times have changed, the first bag is what's called a double shredded hardwood.
Okay, let's pull that out so we can see it.
And this is what 5 years ago everybody started using.
There you go.
And you use about 2 to 3 inches on your flower beds. And it does help keep the weeds down, but the biggest benefit is it traps the moisture underneath it. We do recommend using a product called Preen or something similar on top of the mulch.
On top of the mulch?
On top of the mulch, because weeds do grow in mulch. So that you want to put the chemical barrier on
That's
top
what I
of the
was doing
mulch.
wrong. I thought I was beating it to the punch by putting it down first.
No, well, we have homeowners that insist we put it in the dirt and then we put it on the mulch. You only need it on the top of the mulch. And then we recommend, we're doing mulch right now, moving lots of mulch. We recommend that you re-preen and actually slightly rake your mulch towards the end of July, middle of July, and turn it. And then reapply the chemical barrier, and you won't get the weeds that you always see in late August.
Explain what Preen is for those people that aren't familiar with it.
Preen's a chemical barrier that basically eliminates the weeds from germinating in your beds. It doesn't affect the perennials. So the perennials can still germinate, flower, spread, and they'll be fine. Anything that's rooted in the soil, it does not affect.
It's
just,
safe.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's safe.
So this is the first mulch you have here.
Okay.
Get the second one
what
out.
else did you bring with you?
And then the other one is what they call a maple mulch. It is actually double shredded hardwood, and all we've done is apply a light dye to it.
Put it side by side so you can see the difference there.
And the reason we did it, we had the people that decided they liked the red mulch, which we're not a fan of. The red mulch is old pallets.
Oh, it is?
Down. Traditionally it is. And what happens is there's no moisture content left in that wood. So then they dye it. And then what you get is, if you use the heavy red mulch or other colors, the wood mulch you're putting on your bed has no value. It has very little value because it won't actually help retain the moisture in the soil.
It probably end up sucking it up.
Yeah, so this is very lightly dyed. It still works very well. And the benefit is, after you convert to it, it is more cost-wise, but you don't need as much in the outlying years because it doesn't decay as heavily.
So if you want more of that look, there is that option, but something that's actually going to be good for your bed. What else did you bring with you today?
This is just out of one of the rivers in Des Moines. It's river rock. It's kind of unique. You see it a lot in the Midwest, and all it is the stuff they take out of the rivers. We wash it down. We apply it on the beds, and I would say homeowners, about 20% still use river rock. They like it because you have a lot less of a weed problem.
Okay, so some great options as we're getting ready to get back into our backyard.
Now, if you want to get some more options, like maybe having Capital Landscaping take care of what you have going on, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get us is you can go to our website, capitallandscaping.com, and you can send us an email, and usually we respond within 24 hours. And you can also call our office at 515-244-2724.
That works.
There
Phil,
you go.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
Great
sir.
tips here this morning. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. It is 8:22 and